Hey guys, how you going? Bit of a chilly morning down on the farm. I'm down on the banks of Native Dog Creek, which runs through our property. I just wanted to take some time to talk about regenerative beekeeping and why we believe that regenerative beekeeping is the way forward and into the future. This is probably going to be a 2 or 3 part little podcast, but I think it's important to get down to the nitty-gritty of why we feel that regenerative beekeeping is so important to the health of our bees and sustaining the environment. So let's talk about regenerative beekeeping. The term is emerging and it's often used in a number of different contexts. But what we feel and what we believe is that regenerative beekeeping is a way in which we promote the health of the bees over honey production. And there's a couple of different ways we do that, and there's a couple of different beliefs into why we do that, and we'll go through those. But the main part of regenerative beekeeping through our system is the constant rotation of brood frame and wax out of the hive using a cold pressed method. So that's where you take the frame of honey, you cut the entire section of honey out, including all the wax. It's put into a stainless steel press, and slowly, gently, the honey is pressed out of that wax. Then the wax is then rendered and reused in other products like lip balms and things like that. How is that different to conventional methods of beekeeping? Well, in conventional methods of beekeeping, they take the frame of honeycomb out, they just nick the tops off so the honey is exposed. They put it in a big spinner, sometimes heated, sometimes not, spun on high revolutions. The honey's oxidized as it spits out, and then it's sold in plastic tubs. That frame then, with the wax still intact, goes back into the hive. Now, if you look at research done in Europe and America, they found that the chemical load can build up inside beeswax. So that's talking about environmental chemicals, pesticides, herbicides that are used in everyday farming practices. The bees, when they're going flower to flower, they pick up these chemicals and they bring it back to the hive. And when they store their honey and build their wax, then it builds up inside that honeycomb. And the more times you take a frame out of honey, you cap it, spin it, put that used wax back into the hive, that's going to allow more background chemicals to be attracted into that wax, and it just builds up and builds up. So our process of regenerative beekeeping is actually taking the honey out, removing all the wax, then that's processed, washing that frame. We boil the frames. Sometimes you put a sheet of foundation, which is a real thin sheet of beeswax that has the little patterns on them to help them build out, or you can put it in without anything. That's called foundationless beekeeping. And it's put back into the hive. And so the bees are forced to create new fresh wax for one, their babies to live in, and two, to store our honey in. And we find that this process allows the bees to flourish. They're healthy. We haven't found any disease in any of our hives since we've been doing this process. It keeps down hive beetle. There's a whole multitude of reasons and benefits to regenerative beekeeping. So then why doesn't everyone regeneratively beekeep? Well, it comes down to time and money. Our process takes more time, removing the frame, cutting it all out, slowly pressing it, boiling the frame, putting a clean sheet of foundation in, putting it back into the hive. That process takes a lot longer than the conventional method of just taking a frame out, spinning it, chucking it straight back in. Also, honey production. Our method doesn't produce nearly as much as commercial methods. Why? Because for the bees to make new wax, they have to eat 7 kilos of their honey to make 1 kilo of beeswax. So you can see, if your business is to make money and produce honey, then our method of regenerative beekeeping doesn't fit within your financial constraints. But our belief comes from the heart It's all about the health of the bees over honey production. So now let's quickly talk about cold pressed, like we do, and other terms like cold extracted. Well, cold pressed, like I said, is the removal of all the wax and honeycomb from a frame, slowly, gently pressed through a stainless steel apple press, and then that honey is then gently bottled. Whereas cold extracted honey, if you see cold extracted honey, it's still conventional honey. It's been taken out of the hive, it's just capped, it's spun in a centrifuge, the honey still oxidizes, that frame then is used back inside the hive. It's just that there's no heat being used within that extraction process as it's spinning. So if you're paying more for cold extracted honey, don't, because it's just regular honey. If you want a honey that is going to benefit everything, it benefits the hive, it benefits the environment, it benefits us because we believe that it's healthier and tastes better, then find a regenerative beekeeper in your local area and purchase off them and support them. Beekeepers that say they're all natural and, you know, environmentally friendly, but just follow conventional practices, spin their honey, put it in plastic bottles and sell it, well, they're only using these terms for marketing. They don't actually believe the importance of true beekeeping is the health of the happiness of the hive. Now, there's a time and a place for conventional beekeeping. We need pollination services, sure. Do I believe that commercial beekeepers can perform their services in a regenerative way? I do. I think it's going to be harder. I think the implementation is going to be a lot longer. But for backyard beekeepers or semi-commercial beekeepers who have stationary hives and they're providing their honey just to the local community, then I think regenerative beekeeping, cold pressed honey, is the way of the future. Thanks for listening, guys. Really appreciate it. I'll see you next time.